Alright, what is up guys? Losermatic here, and welcome to my final Cyberpunk video. This is my final Cyberpunk related video, so the only time I'll ever mention Cyberpunk again is whenever I talk about games, which is bound to happen. So yeah, originally my plan was, I talked about the Temperance ending already, and I originally planned on talking about the Sun ending, but for reasons that, I felt bad just uploading a bunch of Cyberpunk videos in like one whole row. I think I was down, I think me uploading the Sun ending was gonna be 3 in a row. But this is the final Cyberpunk video. There are a few things I will talk about. Some things I definitely forgot to talk about, as well as some other stuff that I feel is rather important. So, yeah, so I did get the double ending yesterday, so I do have some things to say about that. I also got, sorry, it was on my, it was on a Facebook page. I had to change that. So sorry if you heard clicking. So there will be spoilers in this. This is the last one I'm gonna have to say for Cyberpunk. Spoiler alert, I'm gonna talk about the endings as well as some characters. So you also have to excuse me, my stomach is upset right now, so if I talk, look, feel uncomfortable, that's why. So yeah, so let's start off with the endings. So, I did the Temperance ending, I did talk about it, but I do want to talk about the Sun ending. The Sun ending is a pretty weird ending. For some of you guys who don't know how to get it, it kind of leads into the Temperance ending, where you have to let Johnny take control of your body and help with Rogue, but then once you're in Mikoshi, you have to give V their body back. Now, I'm going to use, unless I specify otherwise, I'm going to use, I will specify that I do have different genders for the two different endings. So, for the Sun ending, I did do male, so if I talk about the Sun ending and I use he, that's why. But after the Sun ending, or after the proper, or at the start of the proper ending, I romance Pan Am, and Pan Am is a bit upset that you don't want to leave. Which I find interesting because it's one of those where, like, I feel like this is one of those endings where, like, if you romance River or Carrie, those are the only two romanceable people that don't want to leave Night City. So something like that would help, if you do want those type of endings. But if you romance Pan Am or Judy, they're just gonna not be happy with your decision. Well, they're not going to be pissed off, but it's just going to be a matter of, they're going to be like, come on, there's other options, alright? You can leave. And it's like, no, I'm good. First of all, V becomes like the man of the afterlife, kind of taking Rogue's place because, well, Rogue died. Where the fuck did that come from? I mean, seriously? Just because you worked with Rogue doesn't mean you're next up on the fucking list. There are other people. I guess maybe Dexter Shawn was gonna be next up on the list. I think because he was like he's like the hot shot of the afterlife along with Rogue. So I feel like if Rogue died for whatever reason, then maybe Dex would be next. But now, but since Dex died, I feel like maybe. I'm not sure. It's a pretty weird one. You then go up into space. For some reason, this is the second ending. This is one of the two endings you get that involves space in some way, which I'll talk about in a moment. Hey, no, I gotta. Sorry, the house dog here is very, very like wanting attention. So, and so you go into space to destroy the Arasaka station, which you end up in if you do the devil ending, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then it just shows your spacesuit failing or something, which I'm not sure what that's about. I wish they explained further like what happens, but you're just guessing based off something. You just have to take guesses off what happens based off the voice messages you get. Mostly through Vic. I feel like Vic is one of those that's kind of obvious as to what happens. But yeah, otherwise I didn't like this one. It's definitely maybe second on the list, or maybe third, because there is one which I'll talk about right now, the devil ending. My God, this is the worst ending ever. And let me explain. This is even worse than the Temperance, and in my opinion, the suicide ending. And let me explain why. Now, I did play as a female for this one, and did romance Judy. I will take that into effect. So if you guys did males and romanced Pan Am or whatever, just know my whole thing is different because I really wanted to play a female because I got tired of the male V. So this one is god awful. So first of all, this is, I know I said before that if you guys watch my Temperance video, I talked about the fact that it is the most unfair ending. Not after playing this, because it's unfair for everyone except for one person, which I'll talk about in a moment. It's unfair to Johnny because of the fact that he brings up a good point. He's willing to take a bullet for you, and it's obvious. Hey, no, you gotta go. It's pretty obvious in the sense that it's unfair for Johnny because if you do the tapeworm quest, or if you finish it, which I think is after search and destroy, he talks about the fact that he'll take a bullet for you, which for you. Keep that in mind as I'm talking about Johnny. So it's for you. If your life is in danger, he'll be the one to sacrifice himself so you can keep your body. He is willing to do that. But in the devil ending, you force him to take that bullet. There's no need for that. You keep your body, and Johnny gets pissed off. So it's unfair for him because he was willing to take a bullet for you, not from you. And so with that, it just and Johnny makes a point that he's acting like the old V, and this new V is just all about corporations now and working with the enemy, which is true because, and Misty brings up a good point either, they were the ones that got Jackie killed, and you're working with them. This brings up so many obvious points that it's fucking stupid and ridiculous why anyone would go through with this, which I did, but oh, and by the way, if you save Takamura, it would help you out a lot, especially with the Atom Smasher part, because whenever I first tried to do the devil ending, I mentioned that in I think my first Cyberpunk review video. I talked about the fact that I did try and go for the devil ending first, but I didn't save Takamura, so there was no way I could have gotten the devil achievement or trophy, because I'm all about getting those trophies, you know? So, sorry. And so then it becomes unfair to V because she's stuck in this test lab doing whatever they tell her to do against her will. It's obvious because you do have a choice to destroy everything and not work with them. So in essence, it's torture for her. Or again, them, but I say her because that's who I played as. So keep that in mind as I keep going through this whole review. It's torture for them, but in essence, they are not happy with V is not happy with it. That's why I say her, because I could be talking about anyone. So so she gets all pissed off and shit and destroys the treadmill. Well, it's optional, you don't have to, but I mean, come on, who doesn't like destroying shit, you know? So you have a choice of destroying the what is it? The chair, the treadmill, and you have a chance to throw the cube and destroy some fire hydrant for whatever reason. So there's that. Which, if you ask me, is like the good part of this ending. And then so next you have the choice to call up certain people. Which, depending on how you go, kind of how I did, I think I called up Judy, Pan Am, and Vic. Not in that order, but, well, okay, if it was order, it'd be Judy, Vic, and Pan Am. So, and it's also unfair to the people you call, but I think more unfair to the people you romance. And the reason that is because you're in space, they're in Earth. They miss you a lot because you're in space. They haven't seen you in however long. And they desperately want you. Well, okay, Judy desperately wanted V to come back, so I feel like and if whole logic thing is correct, I'm pretty sure Panam, River, and Carrie would be the same way. So yeah, then there's that. So it's also unfair to Vic in the sense that he just wants his friend to come back. Misty's out of town, and so he's all alone. He doesn't have anyone. Jackie's dead. Misty's out of town. You're in space. He has no one. And so what does this benefit? Who does this benefit? Well, this devil ending affects or is positive for Arasaka, the Arasakas. And the reason that is because Saburo Arasaka takes over Yorinobu, his son's body, and now they become like the most successful corporation ever, even beating out Militech, or not Militech. Yeah, I was thinking Maelstrom, Militech, and all of the big stuff. So now they are the big corporation again. So it really benefits the person that killed your friend or friends, and got you killed, and you stuck with Johnny in the first place. So something like this is pretty much, it benefits only one person that isn't you. So if you ask me, it's unfair, and it's also unfair for V because if you save Takamura, he shows up and he says, "Look, Hanako Arasaka gave you the choice of preserving your body or preserving your mind, and what that means is we could have you in someone else's body, and you can be free to live your life. You can live the long life you wanted, the long life you want. You don't have to worry about the 6 months that you'll be alive and whatnot." The problem with that is Takamura says himself that it's not going to be as long as, or it's not going to be as quick as Saburo taking over Arasaka's or Yorinobu's, because of the fact that her brain is special. So you could wait 10 years, 20, 50 even. Hell, you may not even get a body to begin with because your brain is so fucked up from the biochip. There's nothing much you can do. So, and I think this is terrible because nobody liked the Arasakas to begin with. No one in your life liked them. Misty's pissed off at the Arasakas for getting Jackie killed. Vic is, well, he's probably pissed off at everyone. Probably. I'm not gonna lie. Even in quests where like I need him, he scares the shit out of me. He's just very serious and whatnot. So yeah, everybody dislikes the Arasaka. So, well, except for the Arasaka people, but that's a completely different story. But yeah, so as a whole, I do think the devil ending is by far the worst because it makes V miserable. That's why I think the star ending is the good ending, because everybody's happy. If you romance Panam, she's happy, or if you romance Judy, they're happy. If you romance River or Carrie, they may not be happy, but at least they're not pissed off at you, you know. So everybody ends up happy. But to be honest, I think I should have taken the suicide route over this. Or if I have to do this, to me, the devil ending feels like the Mr. House ending for me, where it's one that like, okay, I did it, probably won't be doing it again. Because I barely have in Fallout New Vegas, I have done Mr. House's ending the least amount of times, because Mr. House is a greedy shit. And this one, and again, the Arasakas are basically greedy in the sense that they want your body. It's obvious because Hanako Arasaka says, "Look, you ain't got 6 months. You got 6 months left to live. You can either live those 6 months, which will go by pretty fast, or we can preserve your life for however long, and then instead of living 6 months, you could live the rest of your life the way you wanted to." Which, she's 27 years old. Imagine having a 27-year-old and an 18-year-old body. Yikes. Which I understand it's not like the actual brain itself, rather than the construct of her. But still, like, who is willing to give up their body for some construct of just a random person? I know V did, but that was against her will, or their will, because it only affects the V as a whole. So, yeah, the laptop turned off, whatever. So yeah, as a whole, this is a pretty terrible ending. One I do not advise anyone to do. Just get the suicide ending, you'll be fine. It's a lot better. Granted, most people would be heartbroken, but it gets the job done a lot quicker. You don't have to worry about the bullshit greedy corporations and whatnot. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would say the suicide ending is better than the devil ending. I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think the devil ending is better than the suicide ending, or do you think the suicide ending is better than the devil ending? I understand that a lot of heartbroken people will be, or a lot of people would be heartbroken, but at the same time, it's better than suffering through all of those trials and tests, which leads on to like the Part 2, which is my review, my finished up review. I do have a lot to say about this one. I'm hoping that if I angle this a certain way. What if I... there we go. I just have to do that. So, that doesn't help. Hold on. That should be fine. So, yeah, it's pretty dark in here. It feels like it's 12 or midnight or whatever, even though you guys can see sunlight like right here. You guys can see a little bit of light there, and like right back here. So, but yeah, it feels like it's midnight out here. Even though I just woke up like a couple of hours ago. So yeah, so the second half is my part 2 review. If you guys just want to know about the endings, then yeah, whatever. But the part 2 is kind of like some clearing some stuff up, some stuff I wanted to talk about but never got a chance to in my part 1 review because I forgot. So one is, and I did hint at this in some of my deleted videos because I just want to talk about why I'm a terrible review person, but it all just came down to me talking about Cyberpunk and the romancing because I'm a terrible person. But so part 2, I'm gonna start off with the characters. The characters in this game are amazing. For people like Misty, all the way to Johnny, to even Rogue, Judy, all of that. Which, by the way, I did some searching on some websites, and I learned that 3 people show up no matter what ending you get or how you play the game, which is Judy, Vic, and Misty. Those are the 3 that show up, not in that order. It'd be like Vic, Judy, and Misty. Those are the only 3 that show up no matter what. If you barely talk to any of them and you committed suicide, those 3 will show up. If you didn't do anything that affects Pan Am, okay, so messing with Pan Am and the Aldecados happen no matter what. So basically, you'll end up getting Pan Am and Saul and Mitch, mostly. I think. I'm not sure. But other than that, those are the only 3 that show up every time on the ending. But I find it strange on how, I don't know, I just wish the whole thing of like ending it was, or ending the game, not killing yourself. The whole thing of like ending the game just seems a bit weird because you go through the whole thing. By the way, it's really freaking long. The credits, these are like the longest credits I've ever seen. I told it was after I beat the game. My grandmother knocked on my door and said, "Hey, dinner's ready." I was like, "Okay, let me get through the cutscene." 10 minutes go by. I'm still not done with the credits. I'm like, "Well, what the shit is this?" So I decided to go back and say, "Fuck it." So, to be honest, as long as you got Misty, or after you see Misty, you're pretty much good for the whole game. So, you can skip credits if you want, although I wouldn't. I would say if you're playing this game for the first time, I wouldn't say skip credits, because you gotta give credit where credit's due, you know. Whether you like it or dislike it, respect. Well, okay, never mind, because I skipped credits the first game too, even though I didn't with this, because I love this game. So yeah. Next, I'm gonna go over the worst quests ever, and yes, there are some. I do believe every game has terrible quests. There are some games that I do regret, that make me regret restarting. Fallout 4 has some, Fallout New Vegas has some, and this game definitely has some. But this is one of those where, like, every time I restart, I'm like, fuck, I have to deal with these. I have to deal with this quest again. Seriously. So in no particular order, this is bound to change. If it does, I'm not gonna talk about it. And you have to forgive me. I don't have a proper list yet. So I think most of these would be like main ones, also. So yeah. So number 5 is, what would I put it? The heist. The heist is god awful. It's mostly just because of the fact that it's not like, okay, let's put this straightforward. Jackie dying is not the reason this is a terrible quest or job. I keep saying quest, so if I say quest throughout this whole video, just know I am talking about jobs, because I'm so used to playing games like Skyrim and Fallout where they are called quests. But jobs. So the heist is one of the worst ones, or it's not top 5, but I just dislike the job, not because of Jackie dying. Jackie dying is medium compared to reasons I hate it. I hate it because I just don't like Dexter Sean. I almost said Dak Shepard. I don't know him enough to like or dislike him. But Dexter Deshawn is just an awful person. He assumes you killed Saburo Arasaka, not realizing that you didn't kill him. Granted, he doesn't have access to the personal schedule of Saburo, so there was no way that he would have known that Saburo was there. But at the same time, he was the one that set it up, so Jackie's blood is also on his hands, even though Jackie's also on V's hands, almost quite literally. As a whole, this isn't one that I hate going through, but I just find it awkward, you know? So next is chipping in, chipping in. Just because it's basically just a quest full of nothing but cutscenes. That's it. And I understand that a lot of times it is just cutscenes as a whole, but you do make decisions in this one. But I just find it unnecessary. You know, like, there's no real reason. You don't even see Johnny talk to Rogue, so for all you know, Rogue just doesn't show up, so you have to take the word of V to be like, okay, Johnny did talk to Rogue. And I just feel like Johnny betrayed the trust of V, in a sense of, like, he said, look, I'll talk to Rogue, that's it. In and out, just like that. So it's in, a couple of hours later, or maybe a day or two later, out. Did talk to Rogue, but then got a tattoo, got drunk, killed a hooker or someone at the end of it. So it's all this stuff, and it's awkward. It's weird. So, plus not to mention the fact that it's also weird if Johnny, if you use female V and then Johnny takes over, it's weird. So yeah, next terrible quest is Tapeworm. Oh my god, this one. Now, I don't hate Tapeworm for the reasons I hate other quests. I hate Tapeworm because this is the one that is dependent on if you beat the game or not. And what I mean by that is what I learned is Cyberpunk has a certain way you need to play the game. And yes, There is. I saw on YouTube there is a way you have to beat the game. So the way you have to beat it is you have to go through all of Evelyn Parker's stuff first. So from Automatic Love to Disaster Piece? I don't think it's Disaster Piece. I think it's something else, but it's definitely the quest before you start the whole Judy's personal quest. So, so if you want my advice, if you guys want to know how to properly do this, I would say do Judy's quest up until you need to talk to Mr. Hands. All right, and then once you talk to Mr. Hands, while doing Evelyn Parker stuff, you should get a call from Takamura that says, I know someone who could see us, maybe get some evidence, meet me here. That's when you talk to Oda. And then once you talk to Mr. Hands, go to meet Takamura at that place and then go talk to Oda. Alright? Then go through the entirety of Takamura's stuff until after the quest Give Me Danger. From there, you go to Pacifica. Alright? From Pacifica, do all of the Voodoo Boys quests until they're done. And then once you do that, then you do Pan Am stuff, then you do Ghost Town, and then once you get Hellman, Takamura will call you up. And then either do, if you have some leftover stuff from Pan Am with Judy, if you want to romance them, go for it. Although I do advise being friends with Judy at least to get a pretty good ending if that's what you want. If you are doing the star ending and you do plan on romancing Pan Am, that is something to take into account. That you get a pretty decent ending if you just be friends with Judy and whatnot. She's very kind and whatnot. So yeah, then there's that. And then once you get a call from Takamura, I will say do. Then I would say, or after you get a call. Or once you get a call from Takamura saying that the parade is ready, do the parade up until you get Nocturne OP55N1. That is how it's supposed to go. The problem with that is after Automatic Love, and so after Automatic Love, you're supposed to have a talk with Johnny about your condition and whatnot. That's when Tapeworm starts. Now, Tapeworm goes through 3 separate quests until finally, after Search and Destroy, Tapeworm finishes off, which is where you get the keychains from Johnny. So after Automatic Love, you're supposed to sit down and have a talk with Johnny. He talks to you about Alt Cunningham or maybe Makoshi, because he seemed very surprised about Alt during the VDB quest. And then so from there, after you do Automatic Love, if you do the VDB Boys quest, after you leave the chapel, depending on how you go at it, or I usually leave the chapel, well, because that's how it's supposed to go. So if you leave the chapel, Johnny pulls you aside and talks to you about Alt Cunningham, about how a good netrunner she is. And then after you get Hellman and after Takamura and Hellman talk, and you leave the hotel room so you can leave Takamura and Hellman to themselves, that is when you get Tapeworm. That's the third setup. That's how it's supposed to go. The problem with that is after, and then depending on if you do it right, if you get the 3 Tapeworm quests, or you talk to Johnny 3 times, especially in that order that I talked about, then after Search and Destroy, you will end up in Pacifica. Johnny would give you the keychains to tell you, I will take the bullet for you. And then that's when you get Nocturne OP55N1. Now, why is Tapeworm my least favorite? Because if you don't get all the Tapeworm parts, or if you don't get all the parts of Tapeworm, you miss out on it. And yes, you do miss out on the ending. I know this because this happened to me. I got desperate to romance Pan Am, which, in my defense, I don't think it was that bad because at the end I learned to not jump the gun too quickly. So, if there's one thing I learned throughout the whole thing is just do this a certain way. It's meant to be played this way, which I find ridiculous. But who knows, right? I think the reason why is because you're not supposed to, because you're supposed to talk to alt first before meeting up with the Aldecados. And if you do all of the Aldecados quests, then you do have something, so there's no need to talk to Hanako Arasaka. But sorry, laptop. But the problem with this is that it comes down to the fact that if you don't get all the tapeworm quests, then you are basically screwed. So tapeworm is one of those that forces you to play the game a certain way. And if you don't, then you don't get Nocturne OP 55N1. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But tapeworm as the quest itself is not that bad. But I just hate the fact that tapeworm is one of those where it has to be completed, or if you complete it a certain way that isn't after search and destroy. Since tapeworm is already completed, there's no need for you to get the ending without it. So yeah. Next, or the second one, and this may surprise some of you guys, even though I just talked about this, is the devil ending as the entirety of the quest. I don't remember the names, but yeah. I already talked about it. I just think that as a whole, this is god-awful. I just again, like, I already talked about the devil ending. I don't like it. It makes no sense. It doesn't really help anyone, you know? And number one is, again, like the devil ending, I'm bunching this all into one. The entirety of the VDB quest, the Voodoo Boys quest, which again is essential. So this is a part of the Evelyn Parker quest line. There's like 3 different quest lines. There's the Evelyn Parker quest line, which involves Judy and Evelyn Parker, the Voodoo Boys. Then there's the Aldecados quest line, which involves Ghost Town up into, I think, not Riders, with a little help from my friends, and maybe one more. I can't remember what it was. And then there's the Devil quest line, or as I call the Takamura quest line, which just involves all of like it involves Takamura in every sense of the way. So the Voodoo Boys fall under the Evelyn Parker quest, or the Evelyn Parker side of the quest, the main jobs. And so I just hate the Voodoo Boys for a couple reasons. Mostly because of Placide. He's very annoying and very impatient in a sense of like he physically grabs you to jack you in, which for all you know could have been in a virus, which I did Google it. It's a virus that bursts into flames, that bursts you into flames, but since you have that chip, you survive it all. From what I read, I always work with NetWatch because fuck Placide. And so they're very aggressive. They get what they want, and that's it. They don't help you. They help themselves, but they use you to get what they want. And as a whole, I just find this very unnecessary, as there's no reason why you should go to Pacifica in the first place, because there's nothing much there unless you're a Netrunner. I say Pacifica is only good if you have a Netrunner character, because there is a Netrunner store in Pacifica. But other than that, the Voodoo Boys quest is highly unnecessary. And if you betray the Voodoo Boys, you're limited to certain amounts of places because the Voodoo Boys take over like the entirety of Pacifica. So something like that, I just hate it with a grain of salt. There's the fact that there are 2 bosses in this whole thing. By the way, there aren't any bosses in. Are the bosses in the Aldecados quest? I don't think there's any bosses in the Aldecados quest line, except for maybe if you consider Adam Smasher, but that's mostly the star ending, so I don't think that one would count. But or the main jobs, but whatever. I keep calling them quest lines, whatever. So yeah, I just hate the Voodoo Boys. I wish that they changed it up a bit so that way you don't work with the Voodoo Boys, or at the very because you're looking for Madame Brigitte. By the way, no questions given by Mr. Hands. It's just, hey, I got you this job. But I feel like ground rules needed to be set. Like no aggression whatsoever. If you are aggressive with them, they will not work with you. Alright? If you force them to do something that or if you do something to them, refuse to back out, or they will refuse to work with you. Maximum file size, whatever. I'll finish this up. They refuse, like, but there aren't any. Mr. Hands puts you in a situation where you desperately need the Voodoo Boys, and Mr. Hands is like, "Hey, I got you a job." It's like, I didn't want that, but thank you. So I guess it's Netwatch's fault because they froze Madame Brigitte, which then proceeded that Placide needed a job. But I feel like it's Placide's fault because Placide as a whole is just an asshole. Who only, again, like I mentioned before, plus if you die, he's like, oh, I should have gone a better mercenary. It's like, no, you could have done this shit yourself. I don't give a shit that like just because your results are good doesn't mean that they're not. Yeah, but he goes, if you ask them why not use your men, he goes, we haven't been. It's been good. Good better than bad. I'm like, yeah, well, great is better than good. Has it been great? No. Use your own fucking men. But it just seems ridiculous. And Mr. Hands has a point when talking about Placide that it feels like you're costing you're costing him eddies for every word he speaks, considering the fact that like he's not very he's very short spoken. And the fact that he uses you as a vessel throughout the whole fucking thing. Sorry, I had to see that. I'm sorry if you saw that. That was gross. I apologize for that. I had a booger hanging on my nose if you guys are audio listening. So I'm sorry you had to see that. And so if you stop at any point while getting to the GIM, he's like, you can burn and die at your own time, not on mine. It's like, well, why don't you come with me? Like, you could be doing this yourself. There's nothing stopping you from doing this yourself except you, because progress is good and good is better than bad doesn't mean you don't have to do it yourself. This shit pisses me off every goddamn time. And I'm just like, why do I have to do this? All I'm looking for is Madame Brigitte to tell me what the fuck they needed Evelyn Parker for. I understand that it's necessary to figure out who hired Evelyn Parker, but there's better ways they could have gone at it. You know, they could have had Placide do it, or at the very least, just go through and figure out some way to... Because there's enough ice to break... There aren't enough ice to like... Or they were frozen by ice. Which I'm assuming is like the ICE stuff, which is what's used for hacking and whatnot. But as a whole, the Voodoo Boys quest just seems highly unlikely or highly unnecessary. But that is my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What is the worst quest or worst job? Either main job or side job. Although I would include main job because the side jobs could be avoidable or can be avoided. So let me know what are the worst main jobs and why. Although I will say, if we're talking about side jobs, I do think Pyramid Song is the worst. But that's because of my own personal thing of like, it just feels awkward. If you romance Judy, she gives you access to her pad, and that's how you get. And Judy's the only one that I think you can have a relationship with. I think Carrie is also another one. No clue, but I think Judy's the only one that you can have a proper relationship with. And she gives you unlimited access to her pad, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable. The fact that you could just also be like, nah. Well, whenever you have sex with her, she asks you like what that meant to you. Like you could say, oh, saw something new, or it was a distraction. No, like you could say that, but if you're soft-hearted like me, you probably wouldn't want to because it's uncomfortable. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Let me know what do you guys think are the worst jobs, and what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, do you agree with me, or what do you think is the worst ending and why? Let me know that in the comment section down below. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It's a click of away, and you can always change your mind. You can always unsubscribe later if you change your mind. And if you do subscribe and you want to be notified of when I upload, do hit that bell notification. It really helps out. And since I don't have a schedule, it could definitely help you out. And if you want to get the good word around, and if you did enjoy what I do and who I am for some reason, share with your friends. Maybe they may enjoy it, they may not. But otherwise, hopefully you guys have an amazing day. Loser Maniac out.